Good thing is Brian's here, so we got a preschool class. Exodus chapter number 23. Exodus chapter number 23. Well, we're going to end up finishing this will be the third chapter of the judgments that were spoken to Moses to kind of hand down to the judges that would preside over people. And, I think as we go through this ought to be a reminder how we treat people. There's nothing wrong with always having a refresher course on how to treat somebody the right way. And not just the right way, but God's way. Because I think... Well, I know, especially in today's time, we'll generally treat people how they treat us. A lot of the times that is the case. We'll treat somebody how they treat us. Well, if they treat me good, then I'll treat them good. But if they're not good to me, it's off the table. And listen, that's something that we have to practice. It really is something that we have to practice. We need to ask God to give us that grace and that faith and that mercy to do that. I've dealt with church people, and they've been very hateful. And there's been times that I've dealt very hatefully back. Got a little carnal in the mix, and but there's also been times that I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to respond that way. I don't always answer that way, and it's because we're just people. But there's nothing wrong with learning, hey, God, how do you want me to treat somebody, especially your enemy? And that's what he talks about here. Look at verse number 1. We'll get to that in just a few verses. But he says, and now, going off the preface of what he said in the last verse of the last chapter, and ye shall be holy men unto me. That continues on in this chapter. Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. So, what is he saying? Don't start it, nor continue to be on the collaborating side of keeping it going. I think that God really hits it twofold there and says, "Hey, listen. There's a couple different ways you can look at this. You can look at it. Don't be this person either way. Don't be the person that starts the false witness, and also don't be the person that kind of comes alongside and says, Yeah, because, it is amazing to me as we've looked and we see the news outlets and that, going back to this verse, everybody has their view that they like to push. And I'll just tell you right now, Fox News is not always right. And CNN is not always wrong. So I'm just here to tell you, but what do? Well, a lot of them, Fox is like, well, we're going to hold to our conservative group that watches us. And we're not really fishing for the liberals, so we're just going to push conservative views for the most part. And then you get on to CNN, and it's like, how can we be more liberal than MSNBC? And it's true. And that's why, here's the thing. You have to do your own research. You really do. They're reporting the news that they're given. I mean, they don't get, really, the news anchors don't get to pick. That, your job is the news anchor. You read these reports on TV. And so, Brother Jason sent me a thing the other night. It was talking about that Iran had made this big statue of Baal and set it on fire. And then apparently Benjamin Netanyahu said, Iran has burned a statue of Baal. This is a declaration of war against Israel. That's what it stated. Two questions that enter my mind. One is, is this legit? Because we don't know. We really don't. But then whenever you start getting multiple reports saying this is what happened. And I looked it up, and it did take place. I think it was about a week ago that this happened. Now, if I just take that and I look at it and say, man, can you believe that? Why would Netanyahu say something like that? You know what I'd be doing? I'd be taking a soundbite and I'd be going against what he's teaching right here. Hey, listen, don't be one of those ones that just, comes alongside and says, oh yeah, I mean, you don't even know the full story. And man, we love sound bites, don't we? Especially when it echoes into our chamber. And we're like, I agree with that person, or I don't agree with that. And I'll give you another, for instance, Andy Barr. Go ahead.
New King James.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that's essentially, if you come alongside, you're in the tornado of probably more so a false report. And God's saying, listen, don't be on either side of that. Here's what you need to be on the side of: stopping the false report. That's where we need to be. If we know and there's a false report going around, say maybe somebody in this church said something about somebody else, and we know that it's false, us not saying anything, that's not right. Right? We should stop it. Guys, hey, look, I don't want to talk about this because I wasn't there, and I'm pretty sure you just said, let me tell you what I heard. So we have to head those things off at the pass. And honestly, I know somebody that has come to me multiple times and come to my wife and said, I keep on getting thrown in the middle of drama of other people. Well, you know why? Because you listen, and then you step foot into that drama. You are circulating in that drama. You are encompassing and getting involved. And God says here in a minute, He says, listen, take no part of a false matter. Get out of it. Aside from saying, hey, that's not right. But if it continues on, just step back. Verse 2, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. So he continues on with this. Be careful about what side you pick, because here's the thing, you can pick probably one of three sides. I'm not involved, I'm involved, and I'm going to bend it. I'm going to bend the judgment. And really that's what that word wrest means. It means to twist it, to bend it. Well, the rules aren't made to be broken, but they are made to be bent. And that's not the case at all. That is not the case at all. We must make sure that we stick with what God's Word says. And you think about that. Go ahead. You're scanning the walls. Which one?
Thou shalt not false witness.
Yeah.
So what I have learned in my study,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. That is very true. And that's what he's breaking. He goes into, because we'll look at that and we'll say, well, what if? Well, what if? And God says, there is no what ifs. I've given you them. And so this is how because judges, even to this day, they would even go back to, it talks about taking a bribe here in just a few verses. It is amazing that God is so far ahead of us in how long have we been handing out laws and everything else? And God says, You guys looked at my book. That's essentially where we have gotten these from. But there's so many what ifs today, so many. And God says, no, listen, the what ifs are done away with because I've already put them in the book. Now, here's the thing. Let me ask you this. If over the past few years, let me use a more recent one. When Kentucky wins a big basketball game, what happens in Lexington? What happens after the game? Generally, you'll see parties going on, and you're probably going to see couches being burned on the side of the road. I don't understand that. Couches are far too expensive to be just setting on fire. Let me ask you this. If it was just one person and there was nobody else doing this, do you think they'd do that? No. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yeah. But if there's just one person there and there's nobody else there, that thought doesn't even cross their mind. And you know, I'll be honest with you. A guy had passed away. He's like a second dad to me. But man, if there was people in the living room watching the UK game with him and something happened, he just turned into Tubby Smith. I mean, he knew everything that needed to happen. I mean, you're running your defense wrong. And he would throw lighters. He would throw phones. I mean, it's crazy. And it's like, but if we weren't here, you probably wouldn't be acting that way. But what happened is as we sat there, we were like, man, he's into it. We all started getting into it. It's like, give me a lighter to throw, you know? I mean, I'll pitch that thing so hard. But and that's what God's saying. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. The Black Lives Matter. Listen, that has nothing to do with Black Lives. Nothing. It's a bunch of malarkey to go and burn down Wendy's buildings. That's all that is. And so there you go. Now, if there was only one person out there and they were chanting Black Lives Matter, they wouldn't be trying to set fire to a building. That mentality is just, it's crazy. But look at it in verse number 3. Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. So here's what can happen sometimes is we'll look at people and say, well, they have to be innocent because, you know, look at their circumstances. That's tough. That's tough. What? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So there, I mean, but what he's saying here is don't just look at them and say they're innocent. Because a lot of times that is what will happen. Well, you know, they didn't do it because of, you know, look at them. They fell on hard times or whatever the case may have. But don't just look at them and say they're not guilty. Because we will do that. We will. Well, you know, sometimes we'll do that with children. They'll come up, one of them will come up and say, I didn't do that. I didn't. And then you're like, yeah, that one, he didn't do that or she didn't do that. It's true. It's true. And here's the thing. People say, oh, I don't have favorite children. You do at certain times. You do at certain times. Let one come through and kick you in the shins about 10 times, and then the other never do that. Who's your favorite? At least for an hour. I'm telling you. But he says, verse 4, if thou meet thine enemy's ox, or his ass going astray, or his donkey going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help with him. Oh, this is a great, but we look at the Old Testament, and I've heard people say this. They'll say, man, God was just cruel in the Old Testament. He's just mean. I mean, it was like almost like for this many thousands of years, God just threw a hissy fit. And just was killing people off the map and everything. And then we get to the New Testament and it's all about Jesus and love and grace. That is the farthest thing from the truth. God just told them, listen, if your enemy, the guy that lives close to you, that you are enemies with this guy, who knows, maybe he built a privacy fence on your land. And you said, no, it's right here, and you got all the deeds, and now you're mad at this guy. Whatever the case may be. If his livestock, which is not cheap, I mean, this is how they make their money. If it goes astray, and you're just like, yeah, getting what he deserves. About time, God, you got on my side. We'll do that. We'll do that. Why? Because, well, he's mean to me. He's an enemy. But what does the Bible teach us? The Bible says, hey, go and get that and take it back to him. That may rekindle something. He says there in verse 5, if thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden. So if he's working, if the animal is working, here's the thing, wouldn't that be cruel to just let the animal walk out and who knows what's going to happen to it? That's cruelty to the animal. And God says, with everything in mind, the relationship between you two that could be resolved, and also the animal in mind, because he's fixing to throw something in here in some verses that you're going to be like, why would you even put that in there? Why would you seethe a kid in its mother's milk, boil a kid in its mother's milk? We'll get to that part here in just a minute, but he says, if you see that the animal is lying under its burden, it's working, and now all of a sudden it can't do no more. And maybe it broke a leg or whatever, and you don't do nothing about it. You go back and you do something about it. Because our tendency is when, as people, man, tell me God doesn't know the man's heart. I mean, seriously. We'll be like, not my donkey. Sucker. I mean, seriously, and we can be petty like that, right? Well, and then here's our excuse. Well, preacher, you don't know what he did to me. You don't know what she did to me. God does, and God says, doesn't matter. Go make it right. Go fix it. Sometimes this is essentially teaching you, we got to be the bigger person. Man, that's tough to do sometimes, ain't it? It is. It's tough to be the one to forgive 70 times. Ain't it? I mean, it is. I'm just being honest with you. It's tough. It's like, why do I always have to be the one to forgive? Right? Why? Let me just be 100% transparent with you. I told my wife the other day, and it's not right. I was upset and I was stressed out. I said, why is it that Noah's mother gets to walk around free and gets to sleep on a silk pillow at night, and I got to put up with this 24/7? I said, why is that? That's not fair. It's not fair. And you say, preacher, that sounds a little selfish. It was selfish. I'll just be honest. It was a little selfish. I said, why is this happening? We try to do, what I'm saying? We're trying to do what's right and literally take care of somebody else's child that wanted to go out and do drugs and party and just live the lifestyle and just leave this boy sit there in a bed and shake for a week straight with having withdrawals from 5 different types of drugs. Now I got to put up with all that. That's not fair. And it's not fair to you. I said, it's not fair to these other kids. You see what happens? I can get so bitter and I can get so angry. And the Lord's like, chill out. Calm down. I put him in your life for a reason. And here's the thing. I don't understand every step. I don't. And the Lord says here in just a minute, he says, here's what I want you to do. In 6 years, plant crops. In the 7th year, don't plant nothing. But then he tells them why. Because we'll look at it sometimes, when you look at Elijah's life, it's like get here, And then after Elijah has this meltdown of depression and anxiety, and he's like, just take my life, God says, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to get here, 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 and here. And this is how you're going to do it. And he totally treats Elijah totally different. But I've struggled with that for the past week. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'd appreciate your prayers because it's been frustrating. And I told my wife, I said, can't do nothing. Can't sit down and study because he's going off. It's not his fault. You know, he didn't ask to be addicted to 5 different types of drugs. And it's not my fault, right? I mean, it's not. I didn't do the drugs. You know, it's not my wife's fault. But it's what we have to deal with, and, you know, rejoice evermore. That's tough. That's tough stuff that's a tough pill to swallow because you're not getting none of this with it. It's not going down easy. But enough about that. Let's get back to the Bible. Verse 6, thou shalt not rest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. So what is he saying? Listen, you know, the rich man against the poor man, the rich man can drag this thing out in court, and the poor man can't keep up with that. And he's saying, listen, don't abuse, because here's the honest truth. A rich man versus a poor man in a court of law, the rich man has power over the poor man. Would we agree with that? The Bible principle is simply that, rich against poor. Listen, don't abuse your power. Pastors against churches, don't abuse your power. Churches against pastors, don't abuse your power. Fathers against children. Fathers, provoke not thy children to wrath, right? Masters against servants. So there's a lot of biblical principle in that to, don't take advantage of and come against, the weaker person. Verse 7, keep thee far from a false matter. There it is. Guard yourself from these false matters. And the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked. If you think for 1 second that you're going to be right by being a wicked person, you're wrong. So you just better back off from the false matters. Verse 8, and then we'll stop. And thou shalt take no gift. There's the bribery. There's the bribery. And we still have this today. Thou shalt take no gift. And this is not talking about Christmas gifts, so I can still remain on your list, okay? So what are we talking with bribery? I don't know. Did he take a bribe? If we truly knew just at all the money laundering that takes place, oh my goodness, we wouldn't pay another tax dollar. It's crazy, But thou shalt take no gift for the gift. Listen, here's the thing: gifts are not bad. I like gifts. Don't believe me? Just ask me. Just give me one. I'd appreciate it. But I like gifts, and I know you all do too. But where's the motive at giving the gift? You see, what's the motive of receiving the gift? They're being nice, but this person's like, oh, hey, won't you come on my team? And I'm innocent, is what he's saying. Don't take gifts of bribery, verse 8, and thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise. So the wise man now becomes literally dumb, and he's like, nothing to see here, and perverteth the words of the righteous. So what does a bribe gift do? It turns the tables so that now you're on their side. And we know that. Anybody got anything to there? All right. Verse 9, also thou shalt not oppress a stranger, For ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing you were strangers in the land of Egypt. As you look at this now, it's talking about, went from the poor, now it's talking about immigrants, people that are coming into, remember when they left Egypt, some of them was a mixed multitude. They come with them. Could you imagine being some of those people, and then people are like, man, we've seen God work. And the Jews are like, what are you doing here? You're one of them guys. And and honestly, that's like Paul getting saved, coming into the church. Whoa, what? Barnabas is like, whoa, guys, it's all right. You brought him to us. What are you trying to do? I mean, trying to get this thing to implode from the inside. I mean, and so that's the same thing. Sometimes we'll do that in churches. See somebody come in and we're like, who is that? What do they want? I remember Brother Tyler Kennedy preached at Mount Lebanon one night for me, and he sat in you all remember that? He sat in the very back row, and he said, visitors will come in and people will just sit there and they'll just watch them. It's true. It's true. I've told you my experience, and God bless her soul. She was a sweet lady, but she stared us down for a good 5-10 minutes. I mean, it felt like the whole service. But we'll do that. We'll do that. Who is that? Why are they here? What are they here for? Especially in this day and hour, they've got a black jacket on and it's longer than usual. What do they have under that? And we kind of get a little, sideways. We got to be careful. We got to be careful. I think we've talked about this. Preacher, and I think we've talked about this before, preacher dressed as a homeless person. Yeah. Yeah. And the pastor, they hadn't met him. It's like, how does a pastor not meet the church? But he comes in and he's dressed up as he's homeless, and comes in, sits down, and nobody shakes his hand. And then they say, we want to introduce our new pastor. And then he gets up and it's that guy. And then he says, listen, here's what we're going to do. I don't have a message for you today, but this. Go home and think about how you treated me today. And that's what God's doing. Hey, be careful how you treat people, because it is, it definitely reflects who I am, who you proclaim to be. And as you look at this, and it's been talking about false matters and going to courts of law, things like that. When you start oppressing a stranger, that's essentially what he's talking about, is dragging them into court, because they're strangers, we don't know who they are, and you treat them different. They wouldn't know anybody. They don't have the Israelite pedigree. They're not from the tribe of Dan or Judah or anything. They ain't got nothing to offer. Probably don't have much money. And God's saying, hey, listen, don't forget, guys. That was you. That was you. Verse 10, in 6 years thou shalt sow thy land and shalt gather in the fruits thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard and with thy olive yard. So what is God saying? God is giving them, he knows the science of agriculture. He knows it. He says, look, here's the deal. He said, if you try to do this thing, try to grow crops every single year, he said, you're going to burn the ground up. He said, there's not going to be any nutrients left for your plants to grow, for your vines to grow. And that is so true today. We now have people that, literally, you cultivate, do you grow anything? Yeah, I know you do. Do you grow anything? Yeah. Tomatoes and stuff? You put fertilizer and stuff on them, right? Well, because if you just continue to use the dirt, that all of it's, you can't sit there and burn it up. Or as some of these people would do, God said, hey, look, he said, 6 years, let the field rest. Give it 1 year of rest. Boy, that's a lot of faith. That's a lot of faith. But some of them would start to break it up, and they would say, well, what we'll do is we've got this size field, and they would measure it off, and then they would say, well, we're going to keep this part where we're not going to plant any crops, and we're going to rotate it. Do you do that, brother? Do you rotate it? Yeah. But you will literally burn the ground up. And just to give you a little knowledge, in case if you don't have this, rainwater fertilizes better than tap water. I don't know what all's in rainwater. I wouldn't suggest drinking it, but I also don't suggest drinking tap water. So there you go. Yeah, that's the truth. But God says, listen, don't overwork the land. And now he's going to go and say in verse 12, don't overwork the animals or the people. Verse 12, 6 days shalt thou do thy work, and on the seventh day thou shalt rest. So you take a rest. And when you take a rest, you let everybody else take a rest. And here's the thing. Well, let me read the rest of that verse. That thine ox and thine ass may rest, and the son of thy handmaid and the stranger may be refreshed. Now, the purpose of a day off is what? Yes, rest. First and foremost is definitely God said, rest this day. Rest in whom? Him. That's where the Jews really, really missed the mark. They would put so much emphasis on, do you know why the Jews went into Babylonian captivity? Because they didn't rest this way. God said, listen, this is what you need to do. So I think it was 400 and something years, and then 70 years of Babylonian captivity, because God said, rest in me. This is your day to relax and think about all the things that I've done for you over the past 6 days. Right? And then he says, the seventh day is so you remember who I am. And that way, come next day, come Sunday, you're refreshed. You're ready to go back at it. And you'll see me work throughout the entire week. You see me work throughout them entire 6 years. And then you reflect on that for a full year. You have confidence that next year, well, what happens if there's a drought next year and after the seventh year? I mean, what are we going to do then? God says, I'll take care of you. I will take care of you. How they were nomadic people and the dietary restrictions, all that was implemented for them to be safe. That was the reason for it. It wasn't because God wanted to say, don't eat that pig. It was because it was to remain healthy people and safe. So verse 13, in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of thy mouth. So circumspect would essentially be, guard this, keep this, observe this each time. And while you're doing that, don't you dare. How easy would it be to be tempted to call upon, Baal, the god of fertility, in the middle of this time, say, yeah, I ain't any of them. We need your help. God has told us to not plant for 1 year and our animals. And I mean, how much does God protect his people and take care of his people for him to say 6 years and then 1? He's taking care of them, and they have to believe that. We got 5 minutes left, and I don't think we'll get through the rest of this. Anybody got anything right there? We got quite a bit of the chapter, about half the chapter left. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. 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 Yeah, yeah. So I was sitting there, shoot it and tell him that he died of natural causes. I don't know. You'll have ribeyes tonight. No, but I think you're doing the right thing. I do. Yeah. You don't, man, they got a name for people that act that way, Karens. And it's like, don't be that, don't be a Karen. And I'm sorry if anybody is related to a Karen, but that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. Well, as long as she doesn't act like a Karen, well, then the name suits her. But it's just there is so much. I mean, literally, we have so much other stuff to worry about. Why do we have to nitpick? I mean, literally, a lot of people just nitpick about everything. It's like, how do you? And if they're not nitpicking, man, they're stressed out of their gourd. It's like, golly, drama queen. Huh? Yeah. And that's not your fault that their power's off or, they didn't pay their bill or whatever the case may be. But you are the person that they talk to. And you're going to get, if I'm frustrated, I try to practice this if I have to call somebody about whatever the case may be, a utility or whatever, and I'm frustrated, I always try to say, look, I know this is not your fault. Case in point, this internet. I dealt with Windstream. I was about ready to choke them to death. I mean, I'm serious. I called them 8 times to have them come out here and put internet in this building. And literally, he said, would you like to take a feedback thing? I said, absolutely. Yeah. I said, absolutely. I said, how could, and this is literally what I said. I said, how could Windstream further better serve people? And I said, they could sell the business to somebody that knows how to operate one and never get back in it again. And that's exactly what I said. And let me tell you something, I meant it. Because they are terrible. It's terrible. Internet. We dealt with it over in Science Hill, and I was like, I don't know it from either way. But that is it. But it's not their fault. And I kept telling them, I said, let me speak to somebody that maybe I said they still don't have the address right. They put my phone number down, and it's like 1-868-9521 nothing. It's a bunch of numbers. And I was like, how does that? I've talked to 8 people, right? It's like, how can you not get frustrated? And finally I said, look, here's the deal. You all either come out there and hook the internet up, or I said, we're getting somebody else. I don't know what else to say. And the guy's like, I understand your frustrations. And no, you don't. You don't. I understand. I don't understand your frustrations. You don't understand mine. I've been trying to, for 2 months trying to get internet out here. Finally, they got it hooked up, and we've never had to call them one time. That's crazy, ain't it? Well, I'm not talking about Spectrum. I'm talking about Windstream. It's crazy. So, I don't know. Maybe they sold out to somebody that knew how to run it. But no, they haven't. And it was because they wouldn't come out there and cut them. Yeah.
And that's what I told you.
Yeah. You got a chainsaw in that van? Yeah. Whenever RECC come out there to the house and took that tree down, I had a big ash tree in the backyard there, and that guy said, "Man, that's the biggest one of those I've ever seen." He said they just grow up and die, and then fall over and take stuff out. And I said, he said, "What do you want me to do? You want me to top that?" And I said, "No." And he was like, "Well," started looking at the tree, and I looked over at the power pole that's sitting right there next to it. I said, "Man," I said, "it sure would be a shame if I was to fall that tree and it was take out that power line." He goes, "Well, we'll cut it down, but I won't clean it up." And and I was like, "That's good enough. We'll take care of that." But it was sometimes you just got to know how to talk to them. But anybody else got anything?
Is some grace
Mm-hmm.
because they've been given, they don't know God.
Yeah.
Now God is given.
Mm-hmm.
Now He's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Educated.
Yeah.
So they don't know.
Yeah.
You know, we
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely not. And I would.
are we any different?
No, absolutely not. No. And that's why, as you look at this, liken this to a new believer. I mean, they literally just got redeemed, and they're like, they step into this world. New believers, they don't know God that much. I mean, unless they've been in church their whole life and just got saved. But, I mean, most of them, they don't know God really at all. He saved me. I mean, that's good enough for a new believer. And we got to have grace.
Gary was rough and somebody told him Christ wasn't a spare one. Now,
Yeah.
that's how he held them all.
Mm-hmm.
But him,
Yeah. I mean, literally, I just heard on the radio, it was about a year ago, this person that called in, they were talking about Bibles. And the guy said, yeah, he said, man, he said, what I love about them is, he said, you can get them in red letter. He said, with the words of Christ in red. And the guy was like, what? He had no idea. No idea. And it's like, man, how ineffective have we become? For somebody that we're talking about people in Tennessee. We're not talking about people, in Maryland where it's a lot more liberal, or Connecticut. Yeah, we need a new buckle. and I mean, it's insane. Now, there's probably somebody in here who's like, well, ain't they got Bibles with words in red? No, I'm just kidding. But, it literally, I don't know. And I think that falls back on, when the Great Commission was given, people look to see people get saved and they baptize. And then they forget the rest of it. They do. They're like, hey, praise the Lord. And listen, that would be like Paul never going back to confirm the churches. Like, hey guys, Jesus is the Savior. Well, I believe. And then they receive the Holy Spirit and he baptizes them and then he's like, all right, we'll see you later. It's like, well, that didn't do nothing for nobody. I mean, now what? And that's that. I preached that message. I'm saved. Now what? Because it's like, a lot of people don't know. Well, I want to be baptized. Why? I don't know, the preacher said. I think that there should be an internal burden to be baptized. For sure, the Holy Spirit wants you to be baptized, but you need to know why. You need to know why. before it takes place. So that's just my thoughts. I'm not saying go through a 12-week class or anything, but I do know some preachers that do put new converts in classes before they'll baptize them. And to me, that almost seems like a little... They don't have to meet my standards. They got to meet God's. You know, if somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey, I want to be baptized. Okay, here's why. And we'll do it. But. No. I mean, you don't. You don't understand, like, and that's the dangers of, not looking at, as we've been doing, taking full books and just going through them, and really on Wednesday, starting from the beginning and going to go all the way through the end. And I'm not going to skip Revelation. We're going to go through it. But as you look at it, why do we believe the things that we believe? I went through those books, and they've got 23 or 24 doctrinal statements in them books. I'm going to be honest with you. Some of them I don't agree with, because the Bible doesn't agree with them. And so why do we believe what, if I was to ask you, if we were to walk into just about every single Baptist church in this town, I'm just going to say the Baptist because I don't know, why are you at a Baptist church? The number one reason why is probably going to be this: because my parents took me to a Baptist church. Yeah, genealogy. They have no idea. They have no idea about the Dark Ages. Now, do I believe that the Baptist church is the true news? I do, because of what all they went through to stand for on doctrine. But do I think that you have to be under the name of Baptist? No, I don't think you have to be. It's not going to get you into heaven. The Baptists don't save you, right? Jesus saves you. So that's where And some people wouldn't agree with me on that, and that's fine. But we have to get to being born again and then start to understand what is going on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I would consider that entertainment. Yeah, I would consider that entertainment. We've got that. There's a lot of that. And I know we have them here. We have some real good preachers that, man, they get vocal and they're loud and they're spitting and slobbering. And listen, I get a lot out of their messages. I do. And I think highly, highly of those guys. I really do. But we don't all preach the same. Paul beckoned people with his hand. Not everybody done that. I'm sure Timothy was probably like, come over here and listen to me. So there you go. Titus was a head thumper. I mean, when a preacher walks into a church and he's about 20 years old and they receive him with fear and trembling like the Corinthians did, that dude is going to take the spine of that Bible and put it across your noggin. And so that, they're just all different. Paul was not, he's like, I wasn't real good with words. And Corinthians, they were all about, the Corinthian church was all about this. If you can argue with somebody and you believe a lie, if you can get them to believe it, you won. Because they'd be better with their words. Isn't that's going against what it says in here. That's raising a false witness. And so that's why they didn't really like Paul. I come in and I didn't really speak flowery words, and I just give you the gospel, and that's where it fell. So that's just some of that stuff. So anybody got anything? We'll go back. We're Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. Was that Leonard Ravenhill that said that? We'll find it. Yeah. If Jesus preached the same message ministers preach today, he would have never been crucified. And that's true.
want God, but not
Mm. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we had that talk. Am I still on?